I love backpacking in the winter, but I can't stand being cold at night. It has taken me 4 years to dial in my sleeping gear for winter backpacking. In this video, I'll share the evolution of my sleep system and mistakes I've made so you'll sleep warm and save some money too. Winter is my favorite time to backpack. It's not for everyone, but there are some advantages. There are no bugs, fewer people. Bare leaves and dormant undergrowth provide better views. Fresh air and exercise improves your mental health in the winter. Winter backpacking burns more calories, even if the distances are shorter. And the unique natural creations made by snow and ice are truly beautiful this time of year. At the end of the video, I'll summarize everything I learned and provide some bonus tips. There are timestamps in the description below if you'd like to skip ahead or revisit a section of this video. My first experience since Boy Scouts was March 29th, 2018. I was so anxious to get out, I didn't wait for the warm weather. Let's watch and listen.
I survived my first night in the tent. It was pretty cold last night. I put most of the clothes I had brought with me back on. Just to get through it. It was in the 40, it was about 40 degrees last night, but it felt more like 30. There's a good wind blowing. There's definitely a few things I could do better. I could bring more clothes, I could bring a warmer sleeping bag.
Alright, I could critique this trip for hours, but let's focus on the sleeping gear. I'm a cold sleeper, and if you're like me, you'll need more than your sleeping bag to keep you warm at its comfort rating. Without going into too much detail, sleeping bags and quilts are rated for comfort and survival. These ratings are standardized, but people are individuals, and my comfort level as a cold sleeper may be significantly different than that of a warm sleeper. These ratings, therefore, are only for comparison of similarly rated gear. Sleeping pads use the R-value system. It's similar to the insulation we have in our homes. The higher the number, the more it insulates you from the cold ground. On this first trip, I had a Firelight outdoor sleeping bag that had a survivability rating of 32 degrees Fahrenheit. The sleeping pad was my Neo Air X-Lite, which had an R value of 4.2. Overnight temps went down to 40 degrees. I survived, but I was not comfortable. On the next trip, I brought warmer sleeping layers and upgraded to a 20 degree Fahrenheit sleeping bag. I added a generic foam yoga mat under my sleeping pad. The overnight temps were in the 30s, and I was still cold at night. I wish I understood then that the 20 degrees was a survival rating. The next day I bought an REI Flash sleeping pad, which has an R value of 5.2, which is an upgrade from the Neo Air X-Lite, which has an R value of 4.2. Struggling to find the right gear for winter camping, I came across and signed up for an AMC winter backpacking class. This class taught me a lot, and if you're serious about safely camping in the winter, I recommend taking a hands-on class like this. As part of the class, we camped overnight at the base of Mount Cardigan, a half-mile from the lodge in case things didn't go well. 2 weekends later, we spent the night near the summit at over 3,000 feet. For these trips, I borrowed a 0 degree sleeping bag. I also brought a new tent, a Thermarest Z-Lite foam pad with an R value of just under 2, and I used the Mylar space blanket when I woke up cold in the middle of the night. My next trip was to Racebrook Falls on the AT in Massachusetts. I purchased my own 0 degree sleeping bag to replace the one that I borrowed for the AMC trips. Overnight temperatures were down to 29-ish, but we did all right. New sleeping bag I got seemed to make a difference. Having been locked up due to COVID and feeling more confident, I embarked on a Thanksgiving week 4-day, 3-night trip on the AT. Good morning. Day 2. We're sitting here at Mount Algo campsite. Got a little cold last night. Not too cold, but definitely cold. My sleeping bag got a little wet. It's all from condensation, probably from brushing up against the tent. It's day 4. Cold night last night, but I don't think it got below 32 degrees. We're in campsite number 1 in Algo Mountain. Then came a pair of December trips, an overnight on the Narragansett Trail and a 3-day, 2-night backpacking trip to Shenandoah National Park. Temperatures dropped down to about 34 degrees last night. almost canceled my trip to Shenandoah. A last-minute snowstorm shut down Skyline Drive, and I had to change my permit to a route that didn't start on Skyline Drive. I think it only got down to the low 30s at all last night. I think it was colder actually when I went to bed than it was when I woke up. I think it's in the low 40s already. It was cold last night. It went down into the high 20s. Water bottles were freezing. I had to take what little water I had, heat it up, and pour it back in the water bottles. In March of 2021, I decided to give the Mohawk Trail in northwestern Connecticut a try on a very cold night. Good morning. It's a chilly Sunday morning here in March. When I got to camp, it was about 24 degrees. When I woke up this morning, it was about 17 degrees. This night almost broke me. It was freezing cold, and I wasn't ready to spend $600 on an even warmer sleeping bag. I stopped at REI on my way home and discussed the then new Thermarest Neo Air X-Therm. This sleeping pad has an R value of 6.9 but cost $219 at the time. I eventually purchased that pad just before my November 2021 overnight on Sharon Mt campsite on the AT in Connecticut. Well, it's 36 degrees. I'm in my sleeping clothes. I got a hat on. I'm in my 14 degree comfort rated sleeping bag. So it's 0 degree survival, 14 degrees comfort. And I'm a cold sleeper. So I got a feeling this could still be a challenge tonight. Let's see what happens. I got down to about 34 degrees last night. So it was cold, but not too cold. Did well in the sleeping bag. I definitely did not feel the cold that I normally feel from below, so that was good. I managed to score an Enlightened Equipment 10 degree Fahrenheit down quilt for Christmas. So I headed to the White Mountains to use it with my 0 degree sleeping bag for the coldest night yet. Go find a campsite, set up my tent, lighten my load a little bit before I head on up the Sugarloaves. Morning. According to the Weather Channel, it got down to 0 degrees last night. It's a little bit icy inside here, but not too bad. I slept warm. I had my 0 degree sleeping bag, and I had my 10 degree quilt. On top of that, I had my Thermarest X-Therm Neo Air. Boy, that was toasty. Yeah, no complaints about it last night. I would say I was warm for the first time in this kind of cold. I was actually warm overnight. You can see condensation crystals on this. Yeah, it's ice on the outside of my quilt, but and it's wet. It's also wet right here, which is where my breathing came out. Inside the tent, definitely ice crystals. I did keep this open and it's all iced up. Well, looks like we got a light dusting of snow last night. The tent seemed to hold up. It was pretty windy last night. Temperatures were supposed to get down to 0 degrees. A couple times I got up, I didn't quite see it that low. Looked like it was maybe 13. In March of 2022, I was invited back to Cardigan with the AMC group, where we again enjoyed camping near the summit. In October 2022, I camped twice just with my Enlightened Equipment 10 degree down quilt and my X-Therm sleeping pad. The first was an overnight at Bigelow Hollow State Park, and the second was on the AT in Connecticut at the Limestone Springs Shelter. Temperature went down, may have gone down to 40, but it was about 50 when we got up this morning. There's a little bit of condensation in here, which is to be expected with a single wall tent. I would say our sleeping bags are a little damp. Good morning, it's 6:30 in the morning. Got down to about 43 degrees inside the tent. Maybe a little colder outside. Not too much condensation in here. The big difference from Bigelow Hollow State Park is that there was only one person in the tent. I'm on a wooden platform. We weren't located next to a huge pond in a bit of a valley. We're kind of on the side of a hill. So I think those factors made a big difference. It's not perfectly dry in here.
but I don't feel any moisture on my quilt.
I loved my Light Equipment 10-degree quilt so much, I purchased a second one on a Black Friday sale. And the new quilt is a 30-degree synthetic quilt. I purchased it as a top quilt to protect my down quilt from condensation in those really cold temperatures, or to use it standalone in the warmer months. My latest overnight was on the New England Trail at the Wendell Shelter in December of 2022. Although I packed my tent, I took advantage of the shelter because it had been raining most of the day. You can clearly see in this video how I set up my sleep system. On the bottom was the Thermarest sleeping pad. In the middle was the orange 10-degree down quilt, and on the top was the green 30-degree synthetic quilt. At this point, we've completed the evolution. But don't go anywhere. In the next section, I'll summarize what I've learned and provide some bonus tips. Before we move on, I invite you to watch the full videos of the trips we discuss. Also, I did a full winter gear video in 2022. If you're interested in seeing all my winter gear, check out that video. I've put links in the description below. Now we're going to summarize the advice I have for sleeping warm in the winter. Sleeping bag ratings are relative, and there's no guarantee you'll be comfortable at the sleeping bag's comfort level. Test your gear in your backyard or while car camp. Know what the temperatures will be and plan accordingly. Use a reliable weather source for the location where you're camping. Keep a journal. Use a thermometer to record the temperatures and note the gear that you used and how comfortable you were overnight. Warm sleeping clothing is a must. To supplement your gear, use the following: synthetic or merino wool tops and bottoms, fleece and down mid or outer layers. Don't forget your head. Use a wool cap or down hat to cover up. Wear warm socks and down booties. Add layers throughout the night as you get colder. Don't wake up sweating. Consider using quilts. They weigh less than sleeping bags and can be stacked to provide additional warmth in the cold. Multiple quilts and sleeping bags can provide flexibility for a range of temperatures. High R-value sleeping pads make a huge difference. Cold ground draws heat from your body, and compressed down under your body provides zero insulation. Invest in the right gear once. I can't tell you how much money I've spent incrementally changing my setup. What do you do to stay warm? Share your tips or ask questions in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.